joystick curves need to be spot on for the roll and pitch access. What I like to do is set mine up to 25 for pitch and roll. And you'll notice when I do very micro movements with my index finger and thumb, I'm able to move that red square within one of those blue squares. Do the same for your roll. Your joystick might be a little bit different. Find a curvature that works for you, but you'll definitely need to set that up. Another thing to consider is the cam in your joystick. I use a BKB Gunfighter Pro MK2. You might have a Winwick Viper Ace or Navy Ace. It will come with cams. The cam profile I recommend is on the far left. It's a soft cam. That means the curvature is smooth. There is no predefined center. You want this profile on your stick and your throttle. If your throttle has a defined center, there's nothing worse than refueling and you have to push it a little bit harder to get through that center. Right? Cool. Now that you've got your joystick and throttle set up, let's add an air refuel. I'm in a bit aggressive here. Generally what I recommend you do is formation fly with the plane for a while, figure out what its airspeed is, and you'll want to stay within 1 or 2 knots of the indicated airspeed while refueling. So super important you know what the indicated airspeed is. It's not going to be what they say on the radio.
Texaco 111, request rejoin. Texaco 11, proceed to pre-contact at 15,000 at 300.
You'll notice it's told me that the velocity is 300, but it's actually 324. So for your approach, I recommend using TACAN to obviously find, and you can couple that to auto throttle to get to the plane. Once you're close, disable auto throttle. So disable your autopilot auto throttle and approach the plane at about 100 knots more than what you think it is. So it's at 300, come in at 400, and then for the last 200 meters, just drop it down to 50 knots above. And then when you're really close like this, you can just use your eye. What I like to do is have that chute for the fuel just above to the right of my velocity vector where it is now. That's how you approach the plane. What you don't want to do is use the actual chute as a reference point. I'm using the fuel pump at the top of the chute. If you follow the hose, there's like a little pump on the wing, far left wing. That's a good reference point. The hose itself is a good reference point, and the fuselage or the door on the plane is a good reference point as well. That's my main reference point. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to stabilize the plane before getting in closer. In this video, I struggle a couple of times stabilizing. If that's the case, just back off slowly and try again. But whatever you do, don't lock onto that chute and force your plane onto it. Chasing it, coming in a little bit too quick. That auto throttle is engaged here. Accident, so you don't really want to ever engage auto throttle.
Ready, pre-contact.
Because when you refuel, you're always oscillating the throttle. We'll just back off and try again. This is a great reference point. The tail of the plane is just about through the window frame. And the chute is just to the right of my velocity. And the fuel pump, the wing, is on the top right corner of my HUD. That's good. You'll notice at the last minute there, too much input. So what you do here is just taking a deep breath, wiggle your fingers and toes and start again. I've got the pre-contact bind to my bottle, so that I don't have to fiddle with the radio.
Return pre-contact.
Cool, so we'll try again.
Ready pre-contact. Return pre-contact.
You just want to make sure he says that it's clear for pre-contact. That's the key word, clear. You'll notice that if my plane oscillates a bit and you start chasing the chute, it will magnify and amplify the oscillation and so where that chute is now is perfect velocity vector.
Ready pre-contact. Return pre-contact.
I think the refueling pilot's getting a bit impatient. Well, so you'll notice that my plane is still not 100% stabilized. So what I do is I'll get really close to the chute. While my plane's still oscillating, I'll put on barometric altitude hold. And it's just a nice way for me to trim the aircraft, and I can just focus on my reference points. So let's see that in action. Again, I'm not chasing the chute. This I've been practicing now for a week. So
Ready pre-contact. Cleared contact.
At least you can see from a perspective how to refuel in the air. So yeah, failed again. Wiggle your fingers and toes. Push back on the throttle a bit. This time I've realised what my plane is doing. So I will actually use barometric altitude hold, stabilise it, and then I'll move back. As you can see, the fuel pump is now right outside the HUD. That's not good. You want the fuel pump pretty much there. Top right corner, that's looking much better. My eyes are now focused on the fuel pump. Shoot. I've enabled barometric altitude. I'll turn it off once my plane is stabilized. That's going to help me with the stopping the oscillations of the plane. Disable it now, and now we can make very small changes to the stick. So watch the bottom left screen where you can see my stick control. Notice how tiny the adjustments are. And that's a perfect speed to engage. Now, the reference point is going to be the hose. I don't want it to go too far left or right. The fuel pump on the top of the wing, just on the top right of your HUD, and the exit door of the plane. You're going to use your throttle to move between 325 and 324 knots for the specific plane. You're going to keep the window frame in between the front of the plane and the exit door, the emergency exit door of the plane. Back on the throttle. forward, push back, constantly moving the throttle. I've also engaged barometric altitude hold. Perfectly fine once you connect to the chute to do this. That way you only need to work with those reference points that I'm pointing out. The wingtip there, the pump, the hose, the exit door. The exit door, wingtip. Keep moving the throttle. So notice the throttle movements. It's always moving. Forward on the throttle.
Transfer complete. Disconnect.
Full tank. What I like to do now is just practice some formation flying close to the aircraft. So yeah, we'll put the probe in. You can either use the fuel dump switch and dump your fuel and go in again. Or yeah, do some formation flying. It just helps you get used to control. Throughout this process, I'm holding the stick with my thumb and index finger. I'm not gripping it, and I'm wiggling my fingers and toe often, especially when I'm getting frustrated. And for the throttle, the left and right throttle are connected. There's a connection that I use that connects them together. Very tiny inputs where I move the throttle between 324 knots, 325 max, 326 knots while air. Okay, those are my tips. Hope they're helpful.